I'm Natalie, 30 years old. Up until a short while ago, I worked as a pharmacy clerk, but currently, I'm on maternity leave, raising my 3-month-old daughter. My husband Bob works in the medical field. We met through one of his senior colleagues at work, dated for 3 years, then got married, and had our daughter. Originally, we planned to rent a small apartment and live happily as a family of 3. However, my Mael keeps insisting that we live with her. My father-in-law passed away from an illness a few years back, and now my Mael lives alone. Bob has an older brother, who's 3 years his senior. Ideally, his brother would have taken over the family responsibilities, but the two of them have always been at odds. Plus, his brother has always been passionate about drawing and wanted to work in the animation field. Despite my Mael's objections, he moved to New York to live on his own. Well, my Mael has always been the overbearing type, feeling uneasy if she's not kept in the loop about everything. If a part-time shift ran long and someone came home late, she'd go as far as calling the workplace to check if her son John was still there. Even after being asked repeatedly to stop, she'd respond with, "I'm just worried about you. Why would you say such a thing?" And then, she'd always end up crying, trying to justify that she was in the right. Tired of this, John left the house as soon as he graduated high school. If I were in John's shoes, I'd probably have done the same thing. It wasn't just John. Even my husband Bob disliked this side of his mom. They've had a lot of parent-child issues, and it seems he's struggled quite a bit. To this day, it seems my Mael can't accept it. Every time we meet, she'd say things like, "He's really such a disappointment," or "How could he betray a parent's expectations?" Because of John's situation, my Mael kept insisting we live with her since she felt lonely living alone. Living together permanently wasn't feasible, but seeing her cry made me feel sorry for her. Given that my husband Bob's family home was on a spacious piece of land in a rural area like Alabama, and considering the house was originally built for John to eventually move into, we decided our family would relocate there.
For this shared living arrangement, we firmly decided on some ground rules. Just because you're family doesn't mean you can interfere in our lives.
Don't just barge into our rooms. Can you stick to these rules? Knowing my Mael, she'd probably want to be involved in our daily life. But if she continued like that, it would disrupt our happiness. Knowing how my Mael is, my husband Bob made sure to assert that point, leaving her speechless and saying, "Oh, okay, I got it." Maybe it was inconvenient for her if we left, but she genuinely listened to Bob's words. For a while after that, my Mael genuinely didn't interfere. She'd call when she wanted to see our daughter, respecting our boundaries, leading me to think that maybe this could work out after all. But what I didn't realize at the time was that this was just the calm before the storm. Our daughter was the type to cry intensely at night, loudly crying every single night. I tried breastfeeding, changing diapers, and everything I could think of, but nothing worked.
There, what's wrong, Erica?
Tonight, many nights, I held my crying daughter, gently patting her back. I remembered a friend telling me that when her baby cried at night, she'd drive them around, so I tried it. Sure, Erica would sleep while in the car, but she'd wake up once we got home. And I tried putting her in bed. So it wasn't really a solution. As if this wasn't stressful enough, I've had another issue weighing on me lately. My Mael has started making unannounced visits in the middle of the night, especially when my husband Bob is working late. Tonight Bob is on the late shift. As usual, my daughter Erica was crying loudly. Even though it was past 1 a.m., my Mael showed up unannounced again.
Hey, do you even know what time it is? It's quite a nuisance to have a baby cry so loudly at this hour. Make her quiet.
She actually yelled at my 3-month-old daughter, telling her she's too loud and to be quiet.
Hey, what are you doing? Keep it down. You're scaring Erica even more. She won't stop crying.
Due to her raising her voice and my own exhaustion from consecutive sleepless nights, I snapped back at my Mael. When we moved in here, we had an agreement that there'd be no interference. Yet, she's been taking advantage of my husband's absence more frequently, and now she just waltzes into our room. Since this was originally my Mael's property, she has a spare key. She lets herself in without notice.
Look, whenever you're here, the baby gets too excited and won't sleep. If this keeps up, I'll talk to my husband, and we might just move out.
Raising a baby for the first time is already challenging enough for me. But with these unwarranted intrusions, my patience is running thin. The next day I was contemplating whether to mention this to my husband when he got home. However, he seemed exceptionally tired that day, so I couldn't bring up the previous night's incident. With baby duties taking up most of my time, I missed the opportunity to talk to my husband before his next night shift started. That night, our daughter was especially intense, sounding almost as if she had been set on fire. I was so engrossed in trying to calm her down that I didn't notice Mamel entering the house. Suddenly, I felt the presence of our bedroom door opening. Turning to look, to my shock, Mel had let herself into our room.
Oh my goodness.
Seeing her there startled me, making me involuntarily let out a cry of surprise. Then I noticed a baseball bat gripped tightly in Mil's hand. Out of the blue she yelled, "The baby's cries are too loud. Make her stop." As she said this, she swung the bat down towards me. "Watch out." Instinctively, I positioned myself to shield my daughter. I felt a heavy blow to my head, and then everything went black. When I next opened my eyes, I was lying in a hospital bed. Beside me was my husband. Holding my throbbing head, I blurted out, "Where's Lucy? Is Lucy okay?" Clinging to my husband beside me, I sought reassurance about our daughter's safety.
Calm down, Sarah. Lucy's fine. A pediatrician is currently checking on Lucy.
It seems my daughter is safe and the doctor is examining her, just to be sure. Hearing that, tears of relief began to stream down my face. But the next words I heard made my tears stop instantly. Apparently, Maya Mill was the one who called the ambulance, and her story was outrageous. She said she heard a loud noise in the middle of the night, and when she entered our home, she found the place ransacked, and me, her daughter-in-law, lying in a pool of blood. She suggested that perhaps we had been attacked by a burglar. Furthermore, she had the audacity to take photos of the scene and texted them to my husband, who was at work that night. Hearing that gave me chills of terror. "What are you talking about? It was you who hit me, wasn't it? Why are you making up this burglary story? Unforgivable." At that moment, I finally revealed to my husband everything about his mother. I should have told him about this much sooner. Thankfully, our daughter was unharmed this time, but what if something had happened to her? The mere thought drained all the color from my face. Once he heard everything, my husband was shaking with anger. She had promised not to interfere, yet she not only broke that promise, but also entered our home in the middle of the night using her own key. And to think she tried to hit me, just because our granddaughter was crying loudly. My husband immediately came home and checked the security camera footage. Truth be told, I had previously confided in him about the verbal abuse from his mother. She'd spew those hurtful words at me whenever he was around. Without evidence, he couldn't simply take my side, so I installed a hidden camera to gather proof. After reviewing the camera footage and seeing the MIL spewing hateful words, we planned to confront her. I never imagined that the camera would be so crucial for something like this. On the video, it was clear as day that the MIL was wielding a bat, ready to attack me. She left our crying daughter alone, and I could see her trashing the room to make it look like a break-in, all while calmly taking photos as evidence. Later, I could hear her with a trembling voice, calling an ambulance, displaying an impressive act worthy of an actress. My husband was genuinely shocked and paled at the sight. Of course, just because she's family, doesn't mean we can let this slide. My husband handed over the footage to the police. After viewing the footage, the police officer went to the MIL's place and took her to the station for questioning. She apparently had no idea there was a camera in that room. When she found out, she exploded in anger, shouting, "You tricked me! I can't forgive that woman." But I never deceived the MO. She entered that room on her own and she hit me without provocation. She also neglected my crying daughter and trashed the room on her own accord. Everything was done solely by the MIL. I never deceived her in any way. However, the MIL, still unconvinced, reportedly continued to make a scene at the police station, insisting she was innocent. Well, with evidence on hand, her claims of innocence probably won't be acknowledged. We filed a complaint, and as a result, the MIL now has a criminal record. The incident even made the local newspapers, making the MIL the talk of the town. I realized we couldn't raise our child here in peace anymore. So we decided to move. We opted to relocate to a high-security apartment building. Before, my workplace was a 15-minute train ride away, but now it's 30 minutes. The commute has gotten longer, but it's just a 5-minute walk from the station, and everything I need for daily life is within walking distance. The convenience is top-notch, and even if the commute's a bit longer, I feel at ease raising my daughter here. When we moved, we didn't tell our neighbors where to. I was worried that if someone accidentally spilled the beans to the MIL, she would track us down and show up at our new apartment. If that happened, all the peace we sought in moving would be for nothing. So we played it coy and moved without giving specifics. Of course, since we hadn't told the house empty, I got a call from my brother-in-law, Mike. He said the MIL had been relentlessly calling him, demanding to know our whereabouts. But Mike, who knows her character all too well, played dumb and didn't spill the beans on our location. By the way, according to Mike, the mill, as expected, went around the neighborhood questioning everyone about our whereabouts. However, with the recent incident still fresh, none of the neighbors entertained her inquiries, fearing repercussions for themselves. This is a tight-knit community. Having someone like her around would make it impossible for the residents to live in peace. That's what was being whispered among the neighbors. Hearing this, the mill felt so uncomfortable that she sold her house and moved out. With the money from the sale, she frequented bars almost every night, drinking until dawn. Eventually, she took a liking to a young male staffer there and began lavishing gifts and attention on him. She'd always request his service and generously order multiple bottles every time, racking up a hefty tab. Still wanting to see him, she even went into debt to keep visiting the bar. By the time she realized she had amassed debts equivalent to several $100,000. Yet, the mill believed she could manage the situation and didn't stop her visits to the bar. But then, an unfortunate event befell the mill. After days of heavy drinking, she fell ill and collapsed. She was rushed to the hospital in an ambulance, and after a medical examination, it was determined she needed immediate surgery. So the mill underwent the procedure and had to be hospitalized for a while. While in the hospital, she called my brother-in-law, let's call him Mike, and us repeatedly, saying, "I feel so lonely here. Please come visit. I'd like you to live with me after I get discharged to take care of me." The way she spoke, it was as if she'd completely forgotten the hurtful things she did to me earlier, only thinking of her own needs. Naturally, I think no one would want a key for a mother who had hid her daughter in Lou and put her grandchild in danger. Moreover, word has it that Mike has a lovely fiancée, and he wouldn't want such a dangerous person around her. To begin with, the mill has a restraining order against us because of that incident. If I were to see the mill now, memories of that time might come rushing back and I might even faint. Given these circumstances, no one is really able to care for the mill anymore. Yet she keeps saying that several months have passed since the incident and that she has reflected on her actions. So she wants us to forgive her and take care of her in her old age. I'm sorry, but I just can't get over that incident. The scars from that time are still very much present. Just because she's remorseful, everything should be forgotten. There's no way it's that simple. I've grown tired of the incessant calls from the MIL every single day, to the point where I've blocked her on both phone and messaging. Given the MIL's current situation, I doubt she'd hire a private investigator to track us down. So after blocking her calls and messages, I felt a sense of relief. However, the MIL's persistence hasn't waned one bit. After being discharged, the MIL went to my husband's workplace, hoping for a chance to make contact with him. She lingered by the staff-only entrance. And at first, employees thought she was there for a rendezvous or something, not paying her much attention. However, when she started showing up day after day, glaring intently as she waited, they began to grow suspicious. On one occasion, a security guard approached her, but she just left. Shockingly, even after all that, the MIL returned to the same spot, waiting for my husband to show up. But this time, the security guard immediately called the police. Within 15 minutes of her arrival, officers were on the scene, and she was taken to the police station. Ironically, my husband wasn't even there. He was away on training that day, so no matter how long the MEL waited, she couldn't meet her son. Upon hearing about the incident, my husband apologized to his workplace. It's a relief that it was resolved without further issues. A few days later, the MEL deliberately called me from a payphone, exclaiming, "This is all your fault. Everything happened because of you."
I knew I shouldn't have approved of your marriage to him. You better take responsibility and care for me.
Can you believe the nerve of her saying such things? Why are you blaming me for what happened? This is all the result of your own actions, isn't it? Still, I think it's misplaced to point fingers at me.
What are you talking about? Do you even understand the root of the problem? Look, MIL, it may be in the past for you, but it's not that simple for me. I still bear the scars, and there are nights I can't sleep from the shock. I don't want to see you anymore, Mil.
I do want to see you. When I said that clearly, my MIL raised her voice. That's because your heart is weak.
As a wife who married into this family, sometimes you need to let things go. It's because of the fuss you made that my life is a mess now. Take responsibility.
She was yelling over the phone, but I didn't talk back. Previously, my lawyer advised that if the MIL ever contacts me, I should record the conversation and screenshot any texts or emails. So I always had a voice recorder in my bag just in case I ever needed it. Of course, I reported all of this to my attorney. After the attorney notified my mother-in-law, I never received a call from her again. My husband, believing this was the last straw, called his mom and told her, "If you interfere again, I won't hesitate to call the cops," and hung up. We immediately changed our cell phone numbers after that. Bob, my brother-in-law, also changed his number, and finally we were free from the mill. However, just in case, I gave my number to my uncle, a former cop, so he could reach out if needed. My uncle would never accidentally give out the number to the mill, and besides, she dislikes him, so she wouldn't call him first. After sharing all the past incidents with him, he told me to just leave it to him. I took his word and decided to let him handle it. Later on, the mill decided to look for a job to pay off her debts. However, given her age, she couldn't find any high-paying jobs. Still, she needed to repay her debts, so she called relatives asking for financial help, but no one was willing to assist her. Feeling desperate, the mill juggled several part-time jobs to make ends meet. Apparently, she struggles with relationships at work and isn't quick on the uptake, so she often gets yelled at by younger supervisors. By the way, ever since then, my daughter no longer wakes up crying at night. Now, she sleeps soundly, making all those past worries seem like a distant memory. Perhaps that house wasn't comfortable for my daughter. Moving forward, I want my husband, daughter, and me to have peaceful days together.